This year has been the most transformational of my life. I started out with the sole intention of getting to know myself again. After hitting an emotional bottom the previous year, I realized I was at the end of an era, and myself of the previous chapter was gone. I was lost, confused, depressed, and had no idea who I was anymore. So, I set out to start fresh, start over, and reconnect with myself. I sang, I spent time in nature, I meditated, danced, returned to all the things I know, and I shared my journey with the hope that someone, anyone, would find comfort and perhaps feel less alone. Sharing my healing journey has proved to be its own form of therapy, and though personal growth is a lifelong journey, I am a far cry from the mess I was a year ago, from the emotional bottom I found myself in. But what you may not know is, that was not the first nor the worst time I've hit bottom. In fact, 13 years ago, I destroyed my entire life. Hey friends, welcome back to Pearls and Ivy. This will be the last video I will be making for a while. With so much growth and change happening this year, and as we get closer and closer to this huge energetic shift and the solstice, the shadows, they have been coming out. So I figured it's time. I talked in my last video about the story that you're ready to let go of and how important it is to release that story so you can be open to write a new one. And even though this is an old story, I realized that a lot of the shame and the guilt of it is still lingering in my soul. So I figured the best way to release it is to share it. And now I'm ready to tell my story. And I started to write it down, and I started to bullet point it out, and I was trying to make it flow and sound all nice and authory, and I realized that within the process of trying to make it sound a certain way, I was trying to rationalize it because I was worried about how it would come across. But the best thing we can do is just share our truth, right? So, here's mine. But I do need to give some sort of context and some sort of background so we understand what's happening. So I was a happy kid, super happy kid, a star in my own right. My favorite things to do were play dress up and dance around. And my mom told me that anytime anyone came over the house, I would run to my room, put on some sort of get-up, and just put on a show for whoever it was. But overall, my childhood life was good. I loved my family. We were together all the time. My grandparents and my aunts and uncles and my cousin, every holiday, every school break. And I was Sarah. I was smart. I was creatively talented. I was friendly. I was kind. I was super funny. Hell, I was even voted best all-around kid in the 6th grade. And this reputation stuck with me throughout my childhood. In high school, I started going back to church. I went to church like 3-4 days a week. I got really into choir at both school and church. I was involved in school. I got along with pretty much everyone. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't even swear. I was just a good kid. But just like you can't judge a book by its cover, there was a lot more going on under the surface. I was never a cookie cutter girl. In fact, I always felt like a bit of a misfit. I didn't quite fit in anywhere. While other friends were trying to grow up as fast as possible, I was trying to cling to my childhood hard. I still just wanted to be a kid. I believed in magic. I was obsessed with Disney, still am. I just felt different. I was too innocent for my school friends. I wasn't innocent enough for my church friends. I was too nice. I dressed too weird. I spoke too small. I was constantly being told who I could and could not be friends with, how I should and should not dress, who I should and should not be. I spent so much time bending and twisting myself to fit into other people's boxes. All of this combined with some strong insecurities, some powerful people-pleasing tendencies, really intense mental health crises in my family. By the time I graduated high school, I had no idea what boundaries were. I had very little backbone and no earthly idea who I was or what I wanted. And after school, something changed. The passing of my grandma a couple months before I graduated high school really disrupted the fabric of my entire family. We stopped spending as much time together, which was a core of who I was and what kept me together. It was my greatest source of joy, was spending time with my family. I was tired of all the restrictions from my cult-like church and decided to leave. And from that point on, I just decided to wild out. I started going to clubs, I started drinking, experimenting with drugs. I had a full ride to Cal State Hayward on a vocal scholarship that I was taking completely for granted. At the age of 19, I got into an emotionally abusive relationship that lasted almost 2.5 years, which further diminished my sense of self-worth. And the worst part is, I never told anyone. I never talked about it. I never opened up to anybody about what I went through in that relationship. I never opened up to anybody about anything that I was feeling. I was so used to being Sarah, this happy-go-lucky, friendly person. People used to actually always say to me, "Oh my God, you're so happy. How are you so happy all the time?" I wouldn't dare tarnish that image, so I kept a lot of stuff to myself. I kept all my shadows hidden, and I got really good at it. And as life progressed and life got more complicated, family issues escalated, my own internal mess escalated, and I had no idea how to deal with any of it. And even though there were many bright spots during this time, internally I was a mess. Felt like my life was falling apart around me, and I was just trying to maintain composure through it all, when really inside I was falling apart too. So rather than deal with it, I ran from it. And I wasn't just running from the situation, I was running away from myself. I abandoned myself. My self-destructive behaviors escalated to a point where I had made myself a pariah in my own house, the one place I truly felt safe. I was convinced I wasn't worth loving. I was convinced I wasn't worth sticking around for. I was convinced I wasn't worth loving. I was convinced that I wasn't worth sticking around for. Convinced I wasn't worth anything. And still, with all this pain, I kept that face. It's like that meme with the dog and the fire. Yeah. I deluded myself into thinking that I was fine, that everything was fine, that I was going to get through it, that I was going to get out of it. I just had to keep pushing on and moving forward, but I wasn't fine. And I continued spiraling down, down, down into this darkness. I just decided to slowly destroy myself. I avoided talking to the people who actually cared about me and started finding friendships with people I didn't really know, who wouldn't really care whether I drank too much or whether I drove home. I just stopped caring. I was so deluded at that point that I had convinced myself that no matter what happened, I could get out of it. No matter what happened, it would be okay. And then on October 11th of 2007, as I stood hungover in front of a judge, he sentenced me to 120 days in jail for racking up 3 DUIs in a matter of 18 months. And as far down at the bottom I was, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I think back to times when I used to sit in my car, because at one point it was the only space I had to be alone and to think and to just exist as myself. And I can remember sitting in my car late at night. I wasn't drunk or anything. I hadn't been drinking at all. I was just sitting and listening to music. And I would just cry and ask God to just stop the world for just a minute. Everything was moving so fast and everything was falling apart so quickly. And I didn't have a moment to catch my breath. And I just wanted time. I wanted time to figure out my life, time to figure out who I was, what I was doing, what all of it was for. Like, it got real existential. I just begged for time. And ironically, I got it. My mother said something to me over the phone when I was in jail, words that have stuck with me ever since. She said, "You've got to start being more aggressive about your life." And those words have never left me. While I was in there, I had time. I had time to think. I had time to run. I had time to write. I had time to read. I had time to meditate. And I had time to process and analyze what went wrong, how it went wrong, all the terrible choices that I had made. And I'd like to say that when I got out, it was all uphill from there, but no, it wasn't. I still had just an incredible amount of healing to do. I spent about a year at my parents' house, which was incredible, highly beneficial, just being around, being pulled out of the Bay Area, out of all the situations that I had gotten myself into, away from all the relationships I had gotten myself into, and back with my family was incredibly healing. However, it took a few years for me to really take hold of my life. After that year at my parents' house, I ended up getting myself into yet another emotionally abusive relationship for about 2 years. And, I could blame the other person, but really, I was just making a choice that mirrored how I felt about myself. I still hadn't come to a place of personal value. I still hadn't come to the place where I felt that my life was really worth fighting for. And I think I still needed that. I needed that other person mirroring back to me these truths so that I could really face them and do something about it. And then finally, at the end of 2010, I was so sick of feeling this way, so sick of allowing myself to feel less than, of allowing my life and my dreams and my wishes to be pushed aside. I was tired of abandoning myself. And so I left. I ended that relationship. I left. And I got my very first apartment all by myself. It was a little studio with a inflatable airbed, a dresser, and a couple mirrors and my clothes. That was pretty much all I had. And I was so happy. It was the first time I'd ever made a real choice for myself. I was in a new city. I was still new to Sacramento. I had a job that I loved, and I just started living. Hey, rascal. I started doing the things that I wanted to do. I started performing again. I went back to school. I met the absolute love of my life. I started dressing however the hell I wanted to dress. I rode my bike all over town. I got into the world of Sacramento theater, and it changed my life. I met the most beautiful humans I've ever known in my entire life, and I discovered my power, discovered my voice, discovered my magic. I went after dreams I had had my whole life. I got a job as a special effects makeup artist. I worked as a professional freaking fairy. I went to Renaissance fairs and little local concerts, and all those things that I dreamed about doing my entire life. It was like I was meeting myself for the first time. I was finally getting to know who Sarah is inside and out. The last 20 years have been the most beautiful experience. I don't want to carry around the shame of it anymore. I don't want to keep feeling bad about my past. I want to use it. I want to use it to help people. I want people to know that no matter how far down you go, no matter how dark things are, you can pull yourself out of it. You have every bit of power inside of you to live a life that you love. And it's another reason why I'm telling you all this. I want you to know yourself inside and out. I want you to choose the things that you love. I want you to go after what you want. And I want you to know that it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter where you've been in your life, how dark things have been. Life can get better. But you have to choose it. And I just think it's important for us to share these parts of ourselves, to share our feelings, to share our darkness, to share our pain with others. Fuck the highlight reel. And I think that if I had had a community of people, unfortunately, when I was going through my darkest times, the internet wasn't really that big. And I think if I had had a community of people to talk to about these things, that maybe I wouldn't have gone so far down, but I think I had to. I think it was in my life plan to do it. And now I want to use my story. I want to use what I've learned over the last 20 years to help other people. And so I've decided I'm going to be creating a community. I'm going to be creating an internet community where people who may have felt like misfits, may have felt like they didn't really belong anywhere, who may have gone down some dark paths or having trouble knowing who they are, to come together and support one another in growing, support one another through our struggles and our pain, to encourage one another's growth, and help each other get through this life together, almost like a spiritual running buddy group. And I'm going to be coming out with this sometime in January. But for now, I just needed to release this story out into the world. I need to let this go. I need to finally make peace with it, because it's time to start doing the work. It's time to start doing the work that this story requires of me. We all go through things in life so that we can help other people. And I went through the life that I went through so that I know what it's like. I know what it's like to meet the darkest parts of yourself. I know what it's like to completely lose who you are. And if I can help one person out of that darkness, then I have to. So, wow, this was a real raw and vulnerable, but hey, I am going to be going internet dark for the next couple of weeks, just to chill with my beautiful family. I think about that a lot too. I wouldn't have the beautiful life I have right now had I not gone through all of that. Who knows where I would have been. But I wouldn't have been here talking to all of you. Thank you for being here this year. Thank you for listening to my story. I love you so much. Happy solstice. Happy Great Conjunction. Happy Age of Aquarius. Happy. Okay, bye.